What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and we are here the day after Halloween to talk about the trade deadline that is upon us, and more specifically, whether or not the Ravens missed out on a huge opportunity with the blockbuster trade we saw today with the one and only Von Miller and the Rams, who essentially, I mean, they don't put too much value in their picks these days. They're we might as well call them the Los Angeles Oprahs, because they're giving them things out. Here, you get a pick, you get a pick. I mean, these picks are going out for sure. So anyway, we'll give the details of the trade, but what we want to know is whether or not the Ravens missed on a huge opportunity. So we're going to discuss that here. Before we get into it, if you're new to the show, hit the subscribe button and be sure to check us out on Twitter, any other of our social media platforms. But Glenn, before we answer the question, do you have the details of the trade? Because I think that they're interesting here. So let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely right about the Rams. They have now surrendered all of their first round picks through the year, I believe 2023, and now adding to that, next year they've given up a second and third round pick. So in the 2022 draft, they surrendered a second and third round pick in exchange for Von Miller. And part of me envies a little bit of their willingness. Well, their willingness to just consistently go all in. It seems like they go all in every year, and that they will trade. They will do whatever it takes to put a winner on the field. And I guess, when you're in an LA market where you share a stadium, you share a fan base. While they're obviously they're the big brother in town, and the Chargers are the little brother. There's still a lot to do in LA, a lot to do in California in general. So they realize that they got to put a really good product on the field if they want to sell tickets. So I kind of admire them in that sense, that they are definitely all in. But that is a steep price to pay for a 32-year-old linebacker who is, he's battling an injury right now. He's got the ankle sprain right now, forced him to leave last game early. But hey, you gotta be impressed with their all-in mentality and the fact that they're going for it.
Yeah, no, definitely really interesting. The one thing to note here is that, I mean, if you look at the details of the trade, the Broncos agreed to pay $9 million of his $9.7 million salary this year. So basically what they did is they bought a mid-round pick in one of those picks, right? And then the other pick, they just traded from Von Miller. So in their eyes, Von is worth, call it a second or call it a third. And then the second they paid $9 million for. That's kind of at least how I break it down in my mind. Because I thought that was interesting, their willingness to pay that, but certainly they wouldn't have done that, I don't think, if if the picks weren't that good, right? Like, that had a lot to do with the picks being what they were as well. Not just Von Miller, but also his salary, them paying for it.
Yeah, they may not have been able to afford him under the cap had they not gotten that deal. Right.
Absolutely. But yes, I agree with you. And I want to ask you a couple questions on whether or not. So one, do you think the Ravens missed out on an opportunity when it comes to Von Miller? Like, when you saw that trade today, did you kind of go,
Well, part of me did. When I first saw it, I went, man, just thinking about him, he's got 4.5 sacks this year. The leading sack getter for the Ravens right now is Odafe Oweh with 3. So it certainly would have been nice to put him at the end there. And Von Miller isn't just some pass rush specialist. This guy is a do-it-all. He's just a flat-out great football player. So yeah, that part, part of me wishes we could have gotten him. Look, our 4-man pass rush leaves a little to be desired there. So you add this guy in there, boom, that's an immediate boost and a guy that really strikes fear in offensive coordinators' hearts. But at the same time, I realized the recent history between the Ravens and the Denver Broncos isn't so pretty right now. And I don't know how much pull Vic Fangio has or how much input he has on personnel decisions like this, but I'm sure
as much as I do for the Ravens.
Yeah, I guess, hey, look, man, they're bouncing back, right? Didn't they? Did they not win this past week? Did they not beat the Washington football team? Am I missing something?
No, they didn't play the Washington football team this week. Didn't Washington football team play Atlanta this week?
Am I tripping? I thought they
won,
bounced. I know
they
they lost
won.
4 in a row. Yeah, I know
They
they've
won,
lost
but I
4 in a
forgot who they
row.
beat. But it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know who they beat, but anyway, I know they won 3 in a row, then they lost 4 in a row. So they definitely that team I think is starting to offload, and I think it was smart for them to move Von Miller. But I don't think they were ever going to move Von Miller inside the conference.
Oh shoot, you're right. My bad. Yeah, they
So it
did
was
beat
Washington, right?
Jeez,
Okay.
I'm going crazy.
Okay, I didn't think I was tripping, but look, beating Washington doesn't necessarily mean you're on your way back up and you're going to be fighting for the division. I think they know exactly where they're headed, and that's to, unfortunately for them, miss the playoffs again. So I think it was wise to get rid of them, but I don't think they were trading inside the conference if they had a choice, and I certainly don't think they were going to trade with the Ravens after.
Yeah.
It seemed like that one play, that one 3-second play that they ran with Lamar Jackson to tie that record. I mean, it really rubbed Vic Fangio the wrong way. He still has yet to let it go. And for that reason alone, I don't think Vic Fangio, how much input he has, I don't know. But I don't think he was willing to give any ammunition for the Ravens to continue their run. But so what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the Ravens had any chance of trading for this guy?
No, but honestly, I don't think it had anything to do with the interaction.
Okay.
The play. I think it had everything to do with the way the Ravens viewed this. One, we're already the third oldest defense in the NFL. So we wouldn't get younger, like you said. He's 32 years old. Is he older than Justin Houston?
They're right around the same age.
I mean, that's so crazy to me because Justin Houston, I mean, Justin Houston is one of those dudes that could be 40 or 28 and you just don't know because he's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, but the third oldest defense in the NFL, they've already got some guys that are old and around that age that have been recently injured. Some guys that are deteriorating. Really, the only guy that's north of 30 that's doing anything on the defensive line these days is Calais Campbell. Derek Wolfe is just coming back, and we'll see what kind of impact that has. Obviously, the salary had a play in it. Eric DeCosta is not giving up a second rounder. I mean, I don't know what Eric DeCosta would have to get to give up a second rounder, right? I mean, it would take so much that he won't, that for him to give up a second rounder. But the other thing is, we're not built this way, and I don't think we'll ever be built this way. It's not the way that the Ravens work. They trust their own eyes rather than others. And so I think that they value a second round pick with their team making that pick than picking up even a known commodity in a Von Miller. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to that. And I think they're nervous about the injury. I don't think they want to bring in a guy that's going to get hurt again, that's going to end up being on the sideline. We got plenty of those.
We certainly have our fair share of injuries. But I mean, at the same time, I think that there was something to that bad blood. But if not, if I took that out, and let's say they didn't have that issue at the end of the game, do you think the AFC connection was too much for them to get over, or do you think that didn't really weigh in?
Yeah, I don't think it weighed in. We've done business with the Broncos, remember, with the Joe Flacco deal, and maybe that had more to do with it. They realized they got fleeced on that as well. But no, I don't think so. I think they would have taken the highest bidder regardless of conference, in my opinion, because they're not trading a guy that's going to be around for 10 years. So it's not like I don't think it would come back and bite him in the butt, too often. Even if it did one time, it's not like it's going to over and over again.
Okay.
But yeah, so I don't think the Ravens even missed. What I'll say is the Ravens would have never made this trade, I don't think, number one. Number two, I don't think they missed a huge opportunity. Regardless of whether or not the Ravens would do it, like the likelihood of it, I wouldn't consider it a huge opportunity. You just said it yourself. Our rookie is only a sack and a half behind.
Yeah.
Von Miller and I mean, I bet you overall stats are pretty comparable. I'm not saying that Odafe Owe is Von Miller, but my point is that I think the Ravens will find production in other ways, and I don't think it's worth that type of move. So I don't think they missed a huge opportunity.
It's only worth it if you win, right? I mean, if the Ravens would have traded for Von and he sparks their pass rush and they, go on a tear and end up getting to the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl, then it's worth it. But if you give up a second and a third, and like you said, he gets hurt, the thing that concerns me when I look at Von Miller is that it was a really front end his success was mainly found in the beginning of the season. He had 2 sacks week 1, a
Right.
sack in week 2 and in week 3, and then a
That's how
half a sack
Suggsy
in
would be,
week 4.
remember?
Yeah. I mean, he certainly would come out hot and Tucker out down the stretch, but he was big in big moments, and
Yeah.
so I guess the Rams are hoping the same can be said for Von. But he had all of his 4.5 sacks in the first 4 weeks of the season. In the last 3 weeks, he's had 0. So, what is this a case where, look, he's an older guy, the age is going to it's going to show on him, and if the Ravens were to bring him in, would we really get the Von Miller from the first 4 games, or would we get the Von Miller from the last 3? And I think you're right. A second and a third is just too steep of a price for the Ravens to pay. But I tell you what, if I'm a Rams fan and I got Michael Floyd, I got Aaron Donald, and I got Von Miller playing in front of a secondary that has, it's highlighted by Ramsey, that is a pretty, that's a pretty attractive group there on defense. And look, they want to see where they can go with Matthew Stafford. They went and traded for him, went all in on him. And I think they probably just felt their pass rush needed a little boost, and he certainly provides that if he's healthy and on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say this and kind of encapsulate the whole or end the whole conversation here is that I don't think the Ravens. I think Eric DeCosta remembers what it was like when we tried to keep everyone around after that first Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he wants to, you know what I mean? I think he's concerned about getting too old, right? And I do think there's something to be said about buying in, like going all in. Things might have been different right now if we had Orlando Brown, but at the same time, I mean, Villanueva's doing okay, but the point being that things might have been a little different if we went all in and kept him that one more year on his deal. But at the end of the day, I think that's one of those lessons you learn early on in your career that just stick with you that you'll never do again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think that's something that's at the front of his mind constantly. But I'm really interested to see how this plays out overall, Glenn. Let me ask you this, and we'll wrap it up with this: will a deal get done? We got what? It's tomorrow, right? The 2nd?
Yeah, I believe it's
Will a
tomorrow
deal
at
get done
4
before
o'clock.
4 p.m.? We got less than 24 hours. First of all, is Eric on the phone? Second of all, will a deal get done?
There's no doubt that Eric is on the phone.
Yep,
I mean, there's
agreed.
no doubt there's plenty of what was it, fish on the I don't know the saying, but there's plenty of opportunity to make moves. I'm sure he's talking to all his his guys around the league.
Plenty of fish.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I think that the discussions are being had, and the Ravens are the type that they're not gonna overpay, and if that means if they look at the draft picks as an overpayment, then they're not going to go above whatever number they set. But I wouldn't be mad to see the Ravens bring in some sort of help. The question is, who do they get rid of to counteract the cap implications? Because right now they got $1.5 million in cap room. So to bring in a guy like Von Miller, it would take a creative deal, similarly to what the Rams just did, where they asked the team to pick up the majority of their salary in order to, and then you recoup that by giving them a higher draft pick. It would take a creative deal like we just saw, but it is possible. And if the Ravens look at themselves as being in a window here until Lamar's paid his 40-some million a year, then they could consider that. But I tell you what, if I had to bet on it, I would say they stand pat. They look at the guys coming back from injury as their trade, because they're not making a trade, but they're certainly getting guys back from injury that are going to help this team down the stretch. So I think they don't, but I would not be at all upset to see them make a move. What do you think?
Well, let me get the crystal ball out and tell you,
right.
You can book it. The Ravens will trade for a Bronco, but a former Bronco. Phillip Lindsay will be a Baltimore Raven. The pay, think about it. This year, he's getting 2.25. A decent amount of that has been paid. His team that he's playing for is a perpetual dumpster fire. They already offloaded one guy. They're looking to get rid of people. We need an explosive guy out of the backfield.
True.
We got the power in Latavius and even Devontae a little bit there. But obviously, Le'Veon Bell has no explosion. I think that Phillip Lindsay would be an interesting and an interesting fit, also a useful fit based on the stable backs that we have. So book it, Glenn.
Okay.
Phillip Lindsay is coming to the Baltimore Ravens. Not Marlon Mack. Everyone's Marlon Mack. I don't think it's happening. I think Phillip Lindsay.
Yeah, it would help to have some home run speed there. But let us know what you guys think. Did the Ravens miss an opportunity? Would you have liked to see them go after Von Miller? Would you be fine with the second and third round pick cost that it took to get Von Miller? Let me know if you think that the situation between the Ravens, John Harbaugh and Vic Fangio, played any part in whether or not the Ravens had an actual opportunity to go after him. And then ultimately let us know what happens by 4 p.m. tomorrow. Do the Ravens make a move? Do they stand pat? And we will talk.